The air hit Sarah Bennett like a punch to the gut the moment she stepped out of her city-issued SUV onto her dad's flagstone patio. A rancid, musky stench pure, primal animal stress glawed through the sweet dampness of freshly turned earth and the mangled scent of shredded plants. Her eyes caught up with her nose, and the sight was a knife to the heart. Her father, Thomas Bennett, a grizzled Vietnam vet who'd poured his soul into this backyard garden, had built a sanctuary of VY Brant green from the stubborn clay of their suburban lot. Now it was a war zone. Tomato plants, heavy with the promise of ruby fruit just yesterday, lay broken, their green globes pulped into the mud like VY Tims of senseless raid. Rows of romaine and spinach, planted with a soldier's precision, were ripped apart, scattered like debris after a storm. His prized zinnias crimson, orange, yellow bursts of defiant joy were beheaded, their petals strewn like grim confetti across a battlefield. The usual hum of bees and fragrance of basil were gone, replaced by the sour tang of violation. Then she saw them. For raccoons, bold as bandits, their masked faces glinting with eerie intelligence in the fading afternoon light. They rummaged through the wreckage of Thomas's rose bush, one casually stripping unripe blueberries from a cane he'd nurtured for 3 years. Sarah's gaze shifted to her dad, standing amidst the chaos. Thomas, whose courage had faced down enemy fire in jungles half a world away, looked broken. His shoulders, usually squared with a hint of military pride, slumped in defeat. His hands, once steady with a rifle or a seedling, trembled faintly. For a searing moment, Sarah, the city's urban wildlife control chief, wasn't a professional. She was a daughter, burning with helpless rage at the desecration of her father's fragile peace. But training kicked in, cooling her fury like a wave. This wasn't random. Sarah had seen plenty of nuisance wildlife-damaged squirrels, rabbits, even raccoons. This was different. Too precise. Too VY-sious. The prized roses, the fruiting plant someone or something had targeted them with intent. Her mind raced. Who would do this and why? Thomas's garden wasn't just a hobby. It was his lifeline. After the war, his real battles began in the quiet of his own mind PTSD, a constant knot of anxiety, and a maddening tremor in his hands. A VA therapist's suggestion to try gardening had sparked something. Thomas attacked the clay soil with grim determination, hauling compost, planting seeds, pulling weeds with ritual care. Each ripe tomato, each crisp cucumber was a VY Tory, a tether to life's predictable cycles. The garden bloomed into an oasis-neat rows of beans, peppers, squash, herbs spilling from pots, flowers exploding in defiant color, drawing bees and butterflies. Here, the flashbacks sometimes faded, and his hands occasionally stilled. For Sarah, juggling her demanding job, the garden was secrete shield for her dad's battered soul. The trouble started with Margaret Hensley, the iron-fisted president of the Pine Grove Estates, HOA. With her helmet of gray hair and perpetually pursed lips, Margaret seemed to live in a state of permanent disapproval, especially of Thomas's garden. From the moment he broke ground, she eyed his tilled earth with suspicion that soon turned hostile. "Thomas, dear," she'd cooed early on, her voice syrupy but her eyes cold. "Such ambitious plans. One hopes it won't get too untidy. We value uniformity here." Her own yard was a sterile slab of green lawn and pruned shrubs, a place where joy went to die, Sarah thought. Margaret's campaign began subtly. Complaints about Thomas's compost bin, a neat structure behind his shed that turned scraps into rich soil. "It's an olfactory offense," she declared, claiming it would attract vermin rats, raccoons, possums. Thomas calmly explained it was odor-free and HOA compliant, and Sarah backed him up with local composting laws. Margaret's lips thinned, her fingers tapping the fence. "We'll see," she sniffed, retreating to her pristine domain. Then there was George Carter, their other neighbor, a grumpy retiree who griped about everything: noise, smells, anything disrupting his narrow version of suburban peace. George fixated on the compost, bellowing about rats he swore he saw near his trash cans. "Your stink pile's a health hazard, Bennett." Sarah offered to secure his bins, but George muttered about hippie nonsense and stayed hostile. Margaret's attacks escalated. Anonymous HOA letters cited noxious odors and jungle-like vegetation. Thomas, with Sarah's help, refuted them. When that failed, the sabotage began. One morning, Thomas found his tomato seedlings uprooted, their roots baking in the sun. Days later, his marigolds withered, the soil reeking faintly of bleach. Each act, small and deniable, chipped at Thomas's peace. His tremors worsened, his sleep fractured. He checked his garden obsessively, anxiety radiating off him. The breaking point came when Margaret cornered Thomas as he pruned his roses, his hands steady for once. "Still playing in the dirt, Thomas?" she sneered. "It's pathetic, isn't it? Like you're trying to bury something you'll never escape." The jab at his PTSD landed like a grenade. Thomas said nothing, but retreated inside, Leah VYing his shears by the bush. When he told Sarah that evening, his voice low and cracked, her anger hardened into resolve. This wasn't about aesthetics anymore. It was about protecting her dad's mental health. Sarah confronted Margaret the next morning. "Your comments are cruel and unacceptable," she said, her chief's badge VY Seibel. "His garden is therapy. Your harassment is causing distress. This is your final warning. I'll pursue legal action if it continues." Margaret laughed, a harsh sound. "Legal action? Absurd. I'm protecting neighborhood standards. Your dad's sensitive VY ties are my problem." Her defiance was unshakable, and Sarah realized threats only emboldened her. Suspicion grew. The garden damage was too, selective prize plants destroyed, others untouched. Thomas mentioned Margaret's trail camera, supposedly for a nature blog, pointed at his garden. George grumbled about a raccoon family crossing his lawn, but Thomas saw no such thing. Sarah dug deeper. Online, she found Margaret railing about raccoons near the community dumpster, demanding HOA action. A colleague revealed Margaret had bought professional-grade traps, claiming to protect her property. The pieces clicked with sickening clarity. Margaret was trapping raccoons and releasing them into Thomas's garden to ruin it. Sarah set up her own trail camera and traps, baited with marshmallows and sardines. The next morning, the footage was chilling. At 2:17 a.m., Margaret, clad in dark clothes, released a frantic raccoon from a trap into George's overgrown yard, abutting Thomas's garden. She repeated it 3 more times, unleashing 4 terrified animals. Her own camera recorded the chaos, her lips curling in a cruel smile as destruction began. She'd used George's property to dodge blaming a diabolical plan. Sarah's blood boiled. She called her senior officer, Mike Torres, and Detective Lisa Morales. "We have an illegal wildlife release, property damage, and harassment," she said, voice tight. At Thomas's house, her team trapped the stressed raccoons for relocation. Sarah marched to Margaret's door, tablet in hand, Morales and officers behind her. Margaret's feigned surprise turned to outrage. "Harassing me over stray animals in Thomas's chaotic yard." Sarah played the footage. Margaret's face crumpled, her composure shattering. "That's an invasion of privacy," she sputtered. Morales stepped in. "Your actions were VY Seibel and illegal. We're confiscating your camera as EVY Denke." Margaret was arrested for felony property destruction, illegal trapping, and harassment, her protests echoing as she was led to the patrol car. Neighbors watched, some shocked, others quietly satisfied. George, realizing he'd nearly been framed, glared at Margaret. Margaret pleaded guilty, facing fines, restitution, counseling, probation, and a restraining order. Her house sold quickly. The HOA, embarrassed by the media storm, HOA president and raccoon plot, issued an apology, reformed policies, and sponsored wildlife workshops led by Sarah's team. Neighbors rallied to rebuild Thomas's garden. Mrs. Larson gave rose cuttings, young Sam Carter offered seeds, and even George helped rebuild the compost bin. The garden bloomed again, stronger, a symbol of resilience. Months later, Sarah found Thomas kneeling in the soil, staking a tomato plant, his hands steady, a faint smile on his lips. The air carried basil and earth, a testament to healing. The battle had been brutal, but Sarah had used her skills to protect her dad and bring justice to a community terrorized by one woman's obsession with control. What would you have done in Sarah's shoes? Confronted Margaret earlier, or gathered more evy denke? Was Margaret's punishment fair, or too harsh for a neighborhood dispute? Should the HOA face bigger consequences for enabling her? Drop your thoughts below, hit like, and subscribe for more stories that spark debate.